Good evening, guys. Kay is posting, I don't know, some kind of picture on social media, but I don't know if you can see behind me, but we have made it to 4 Granada Street, and that is where the start of our ghost tour will be tonight. We still got a little bit of time. We can't check in for like another 10 minutes or so, and the tour doesn't start for about 10 minutes after that. So we got a little bit of time to kill. So I was just enjoying Flagler College across the street and how beautiful the architecture is.
Don't forget to stay tuned to the end of the video. If you need a stroller rental while you're here in Orlando, got a great offer for you at the end of the video.
My name's Glenn. I'll be your guide this evening. I realize that the night is very dark and scary. You can't even see your hand in front of your face. It's black as pitch, but don't worry. I've got a tool here that's gonna help us out, a lantern. I'm going to light the candle. It's too bright to look at directly, light up the sun. But using this tool, I will safely lead you through the abyss that is this evening. If you'll follow me, we're gonna head over in this direction and have our first story. Welcome to St. Augustine. Welcome to our historic city. It's called the oldest city because it's the oldest continuously inhabited European town in the entire United States. As a result, there is a lot of history and a lot of hauntings. The people of St. Augustine have suffered violence from pirate attacks. They've also had to deal with some pretty horrible epidemics from diseases like yellow fever, which killed a third of the entire town. We're going to be looking for some of the echoes left behind. If you'd like to capture some evidence of the supernatural, if you'd like to take home a souvenir, one of the best ways to do that is with photography. If you snap photos, I recommend that you capture them in a burst of 2 or more at a time. Stuff like dust and fog is an irregularity that will appear in every single photo, but some of the more interesting stuff like spiritual orbs, partial apparitions, or maybe even a full-bodied haunting if you're lucky, those tend to only appear in one photo out of your burst. As we walk around downtown, we will be stepping on some bones. There's quite a few unmarked graves, especially around St. George Street. While its exterior is newer, it's actually almost as old as the Ponce de Leon, right next to it. It has its fair share of hauntings. Guests have noticed dresser drawers sliding open in the middle of the night, doors slamming without ever being touched. Now, the hotel does not advertise these poltergeists because they want to present themselves as a clean, upscale hotel. Something else that's worth mentioning is that a pirate actually stayed here. Pirates have been historically bad news. They've come to St. Augustine, they've set it on fire and carried away loot. Does anyone want to take a guess as to the name of that pirate?
Blackbeard?
Blackbeard, Blackbeard was was an interesting guy. He was a little bit more north though. Any more guesses?
That's the only one I know.
I'll give you a hint. He stayed here recently, and he's a captain.
Oh, Jack Sparrow?
You got it. Captain Jack Sparrow. He was here, or at least his actor was, for the opening of the Pirate Museum downtown in 2005, which is a fun place if you have time to see it. People would draw water from the public well right over there. They listened to announcements from the governor up on his balcony over there. They would also come here to witness public executions, which people got morbidly excited about. Back in the day, St. Augustine was rather small scale, not a lot happening, and it could get a little bit dull, but every once in a while, someone would be executed painfully in front of the entire town. And, well, it was really something to talk to your coworkers about, if nothing else. Now, those executions have left residual hauntings that can still be recorded to this day, and a scar upon the land. St. Augustine was executing British pirates. They held a grudge because within 30 years of this place being founded. Sir Francis Drake landed, set the entire place on fire, it burned down, and they had to start over, building on top of the ashes. As a result, they would capture and kill British sailors when they had the opportunity. Take a wild guess as to how they would be executed. Hanging, as old as rope. There's a lot of good hanging trees in this area. Any more guesses? A beheading. Beheading is rather humane and quick relative to the other ways to kill people, especially if you've got a strong headsman with a sharp axe. Not so humane if he's drunk and the axe is rusty. Any more guesses? A firing squad. That could also be a quick way to kill you if they hit your vital organs. Not so quick if they miss all of them. Hanging is close. It was like a hanging, but it could be way worse. It was called death by garroting. Garroting or garroting, you can do it manually with your two hands, some string or rope. You wrap that around the person's neck from behind and you just pull. But that's exhausting and it's not as entertaining as it could be. The Spanish of St. Augustine, they modified garrote a little bit. What they did is they had a post made out of wood. They put it behind the pirate. It could be on its own or as part of a chair. They drilled a hole from one side to the other. They take a circular piece of rope and stuff it through halfway so there'd be a loop on two sides. They put one of those loops around the pirate's neck. The executioner would take a stick, put it through the loop on the other side. Twist, twist, twist. This would make the rope tighter and tighter and tighter until the pirate finally strangled to death. This had horrible benefits because you could count the twists. Some people on this side might look over at the pirate and say, he's a wimp. He's gonna die quick. 8 twists is all that's necessary. But people on the other side might disagree. Say, no, he's got strong neck muscles. He's gonna fight, let's say 10, 11 twists before he finally stops dancing. They put money down and gamble, turn it into a game. I'm going to need a volunteer to be a pirate. You will not be harmed. I'm going to send you back in time. You're assuming the role of a real person named Captain Andrew Ransom. Ransom was a pretty good fighter. I'm going to give you a few of his weapons. Here is his gun for one of your hands. There you go. A single shot flintlock. Here is his sword for your other hand. A curved sword, a cutlass. Captain Andrew Ransom here is dangerous from either direction. He's on his ship. He's sailing along the coast of St. Augustine. He's got a lot of stolen goods below deck. He's hoping to make it home and sell them at a nice profit. While sailing, he encounters an enemy. He cannot shoot or stab. He encounters storm clouds. He tries to sail around them, but the clouds are on all sides. His ship is thrown about. The deck pitches to the left. He's off balance and he drops his sword to the ground. Clatter. The deck pitches to the right. He's off balance again and his gun falls from his hand. Bonk. The ship goes down and many sailors go down with it. But not Ransom here. He is not a captain that goes down with his ship. He's a very good swimmer and he makes his way all the way to shore. He has not died yet. He's captured by the Spanish and sentenced to death by garrote. And now, you're very popular for one day. There's a crowd actually larger than this one. The entire town is out here to watch you dive. There's some key figures that are worth describing. There's some priests from the Roman Catholic Church over in the corner, and then there's the governor up on his balcony overseeing everything. Now, the rope is put around Ransom's neck, but it's actually very slack to start off with. It's dangling and touching his chest. He can still breathe, but it's scary. It's the beginning of the end. His wrists are bound, but he can still wiggle them. He reaches into his pocket and he pulls out a Catholic rosary. Could you hold them up like that? He's holding up these beads and they start giving, they comfort him. He starts saying a Roman Catholic prayer, which was weird. Because this This was a British guy, and they usually had Protestant prayers a little bit different, but nonetheless, he was praying just like the town would, just like the Spanish that surrounded him would pray, and they paid attention to that. They felt for the guy a little bit. As the rope was getting closer and closer to his neck, he dropped the beads to the ground because he needed to save all the air he could. After a number of good twists, he was struggling to get down a comfortable gulp of air. Could you struggle a bit like that? He was having some difficulty. After a few more twists, the rope was biting into the flesh of his neck. Blood was starting to trickle down and stain his shirt. 3 more twists, and his eyes were bulging out of his head. A 10th, an 11th, a 12th twist, and snap! The rope broke.
Oh,
Ransom
wow.
collapsed to the ground. You don't have to do that. He took in a big, greedy gulp of air. Can you take in a gulp? He was alive. And he was thankful. He was happy to be breathing. His neck was on fire from the rope burn. That was painful. But he was happy to be breathing. The governor was not happy. The governor stormed down the steps, marched across the street, and started shouting swears at the executioner, telling the executioner to get back to work, that this man, he said, pointing at Captain Andrew Ransom, needs to die, even if the governor had to buy the second rope himself. It looked like Ransom was going to be executed all over again, something no one should have to go through twice, at least not on the same day. Poor guy. Thankfully, those priests from the Roman Catholic Church ran over. They threw a blanket over Andrew Ransom. They said no. They watched a man pray, and then his prayers were answered. From their perspective, they just witnessed a miracle. They ushered him off to the church and gave him sanctuary. Let's give some applause to our pirate raid here. Right, so a smaller story for this location. We just walked past this red building over here. This is Harry's Seafood Bar and Grill. They've got some nice food. They are also incredibly haunted. The resident ghost here is named Catalina. She lived here as a child during the first Spanish period. For political reasons, her family was forced to leave. She returned 20 years later, and she expected to just move back into her family's house. But to her horror, she discovered it had been stolen and sold to someone else without the family's permission. She had to fight a legal battle for several years. She won. She moved into this building. She raised her children here. She died, and even in death, she still considers this her home. And she's sometimes quite annoyed by all of the uninvited guests who come to eat here. She has a bit of an attitude and is known to take her 2 ghostly hands and shove, knock people off balance, causing them to stumble, slam into walls, and look way more tipsy than they actually are. She also targets employees. She's been known to flip locked doors that should not be locked, trapping employees in broom closets and other places like that. I talked to one woman who was visiting St. Augustine. She went to Harry's and she was up on the 2nd floor in the ladies' restroom. She was all by herself, leaning up against the sink, texting on her phone, when a ghostly hand appeared and just smacked the phone out of her hands and onto the ground. Apparently, Catalina is a little bit old-fashioned and does not appreciate texting under her roof, at least not during dinner time. Right, welcome to the Castillo de San Marcos. In English, that's the Castle of St. Mark's. It's made out of a special material. Does anyone know what that's called?
Coquina.
You got it. Coquina, Spanish for small shell. It's fossilized seashells. Nature makes it over hundreds of years. We can't make this specific material. Now, I had a group of 4th graders that I was leading around St. Augustine on a field trip. This was over a year ago. And I asked these 4th graders, I said, hey, students, do you know what the fort is made out of? One of them was very excited. He raised his hand. I called on him. He said it's made out of cocaine, right? Close, but no cigar. This fort is built to last. I just want to say thank you very much to Captain Andrew Ransom. He didn't choose to build this fort, but he did choose to do a good job. It's been standing sturdy. It's been standing here for over 300 years. It survived 2 very serious sieges and 15 smaller skirmishes. The walls have always held strong, even when cannonballs were fired right into the side. The ghosts of soldiers have been seen on both sides of the Spanish-British conflict. Spanish soldiers are seen up on the 2nd floor of the gun deck, spotted just for a moment between those cannon slits before they disappear for the rest of the evening. They materialize in their full military uniform. Often they have a musket slung on their shoulder. Hundreds of years after their death, they still patrol and defend their fort. British ghosts have also been seen, usually on the outside of the fort in these surrounding hills, which makes sense because that's where a lot of them met their end. There is a legend about a strange shadow, a discoloration in the shape of a circle. It will twist and turn, and out of this dark circle will come a spectral skull that pulls itself out of the wall of the fort, trailing behind it a spinal column that drags on the grass as it searches for its body. There's a number of different hauntings in this area. There are Spanish soldiers patrolling and defending their fort on the 2nd floor. There's British soldiers sad about being a picnic area in the surrounding hills. And then there's also a mysterious shadow that's been seen recently. I talked to another guide who was facing the fort. She was looking over at the entrance over there, and she saw a shadow in the shape of a person pull itself out of the mouth of that fort and run across the drawbridge.
Nope.
She felt a weight on her chest as if it had malicious intent and was heading right for her. Thankfully, before it made it to the end, it fell apart and evaporated. This happened not once, but 2 nights in a row. It distressed her so much that she tells all future ghost stories facing away from the fort, because if it continues to happen, she'd rather not know. Ignorance is bliss. Cemetery. This is named after a kind of people, Huguenots, which were French Protestants. It's a rather active location. Ghosts manifest in a number of different ways. They have appeared as sudden and unnaturally cold gusts of wind. They've also appeared as a heavy presence, a weight that pulls down on your shoulders and restricts your chest. They've also appeared as a manipulation of the electricity. Ghosts in this area have messed with the light, causing it to flicker, turn off entirely, and sometimes become way too bright for comfort. So the Huguenot cemetery is named after a kind of people, the French Protestants. Take a guess as to how many of them are buried here. Oh. Yeah? 5, not a lot, but more than none. I heard all of them, so we're covering some of the extremes. Any other guesses? 150. Less than all, more than 5. 5 is somewhat close. The answer is 0. There is not a single Huguenot in the Huguenot cemetery. Where are they? Well, remember when we were next to the fort? Right across the street over there. We were next to the bay, and that's where the Huguenots ended up because they were massacred. Pedro Menendez, he set up St. Augustine for Spain, and at around the same time, the Huguenots had their own fort in Jacksonville. A fight was inevitable. The French lost, some of them surrendered, and Pedro Menendez told them that if they did 2 things for him, he would consider not killing them. 1, they had to swear loyalty to the King of Spain. Easy enough. 2, they had to convert from being Protestant to be Roman Catholic. Most of the French said, "No thanks, I will not forsake my faith, I would rather die." And they did. Pedro Menendez and his men took their knives, slit their throats, and threw 200 of the Huguenots into the bay right over there. Legend has it, he made the blue waters run red with their blood for a full 2.5 weeks after the event. This actually changed the name of the bay. The old name was given by the natives in this area. It was, the Timucua called it the Bay of Dancing Dolphins. Oh, that's nice, friendly, and appropriate. Because you can see dolphins in that bay almost every day. Now, the new name for the bay is Matanzas Bay, which is Spanish for slaughter, killings, or massacre. There is a high school named after the bay. It's called Matanzas High. That's literally Slaughter High. Sounds like a horror movie. So that's where the Huguenots ended up. Who are these people then, if they're not Huguenots? Well, this didn't exist when the United States bought Florida hundreds of years after that event. A whole bunch of new people were coming down to settle in St. Augustine from the Carolinas, from Georgia. These new people were American Protestants, while St. Augustine was Catholic, while the people already living here were. Now, there was only one cemetery. This didn't exist. It was just grass and trees. There was the Talamato Cemetery over in that direction. It's still standing right next to the burger buckets. Now, they could have shared, but no, my cemetery, get your own. So a new place had to be built, and this was the public burial ground where everyone else could be buried that wasn't Catholic. They put a few people in the ground, and then they went, oh no, we don't have enough shovels because something terrible happened called the yellow fever epidemic. I'm going to give everyone a number, 1 through 3. Please try and remember your number. All right, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. All right, if you are a 1, raise your hand. All right, thumbs up, congratulations. All of you 1s have just died of yellow fever. It's a little bit rough. It's caused by an infected mosquito bite. You get horrible flu-like symptoms. As it progresses, some of your organs can fail, like your liver, which will cause jaundice, a yellowing of the skin, which is why it's called yellow fever. If you've got a very bad case, you'll end up vomiting up black chunks. That's not good. That is internal hemorrhaging, and it meant you were probably going to die at the time. All right, 2s and 3s, raise your hand. You have survived the epidemic. Woo. It's your job to fondly remember the fallen, to shed a tear or two if you actually cared about them, and then move on with your life. What will it cost you to get rid of them? Well, if you throw their body in the bay over there, it's free, just to feed the fish next to the Huguenots. But if you want to be respectful, you're likely to bury them in here. Speak of the devil. Now, if you bury them in here, it will cost you $4 to buy the burial plot, and then $12 more to pay the grave diggers to dig the hole. That's a lot of money, especially in the 1800s. Some families had 2, 3, or even more people that died of yellow fever. They're not made of money, so they saved a few bucks with a simple trick. They bought one burial plot. They dug a single hole. They threw a body in, then the second, then the third. They just stacked those bodies like Pringles. No need for privacy among family members. Some of these spirits became very restless because it's hard to enjoy your eternal slumber when you have roommates. These restless spirits would leave their grave, wander the cemetery, and often all of St. Augustine. This is an active place. I'll tell you about some of the most energetic ghosts that are here. Over in the corner, all the way over there, belongs a tombstone. A tombstone that belongs to a 5-year-old named Cromwell. He died tragically young. An additional sadness is that when the rest of his family died, they were not buried beside him. They were buried somewhere else. in neighboring Blatka. As a result, he gets a little bit bored and he plays pranks on people to pass the time. He's been known to untie your shoelaces if you stand next to the cemetery for too long. He's also a big fan of knocking hats right off of people's heads. There are creepier ghosts that are a little bit different, that are quite different than Cromwell. I'll tell you about those too. Guests on our tours have felt touches on the back of their neck, icy cold fingertips gliding along their shoulder and arm by hands that cannot be seen. Now, we actually had a psychic come out on one of our tours. This psychic identified 3 headstones. The headstone of a man named Lyman, Hull, and Erastus Nye. She said these 3 are your overly touchy, creepy ghosts, and they're the ones messing with people. We actually had a guide who was targeted by this trio. She was in full costuming, and she spent a lot of time on her hairdo. She was very proud of it. She was walking along ahead of her tour. She was walking along this crosswalk here towards the cemetery when a trio of invisible ghostly hands appeared and just messed up her hair, which is incredibly rude for a ghost to do. We investigated Lyman, Hull, and Erastus Nye, found out that all 3 of these men died within a month of each other. They seemed to share a bond in death. They were also all bachelors, which could explain what happened next. The guide who had her hairdo messed up, she was attacked later on that very same tour. She was leaning up against the fencing right over there at the front gate. She was telling stories. When she was done, she made to get up, but she couldn't. She was stuck. Spectral ghost fingers had untied the lace of her bra and then retied it to the fence while she was talking. The nerve. And then there is Judge Stickney. He was a wealthier guy. He was traveling around Florida. He was in St. Augustine when he got very sick. He died and he was quickly buried here. His family decided they didn't like this decision because he was far away from all of his relatives. So they sent money down to pay the gravediggers to pull that coffin out of the ground, to put it on a train and ship it home. Now, the gravediggers... Come on.
Oh my God.
I had you going. You ain't nothing to worry about.
I had my baby not there.
That car ain't gonna be driving much further.
He didn't see it all.
No. Patience.
Yeah.
I think that was a ghost trying to drive.
Was that the trio?
I know, right? I know. What's positive, right?
Just the light turned on again.
All right, finish the ghost story.
All right.
I'm scared now.
Atmosphere. Where was I?
Not getting run over.
Judge, yes, you are correct. Thank you. So the gravediggers came out. They pulled Stickney's coffin out of the ground, slung it on their shoulder. They were walking towards this front gate. One of them was reaching to open that gate, and that's when they heard a hoot. That's when they heard a holler, and a couple of angry, drunken men came roaring from around the corner. Happy hour had just ended, and they were looking for something else to do. They kicked open the gate, rushed inside, attacked the gravediggers, smacked the coffin out of their hands, chased the gravediggers away. They forced open the lid of the coffin, forced open Judge Stickney's mouth, took a rock and shattered most of his teeth right out of his mouth. They gathered up fistfuls of these bloody teeth and ran off with them. Does anyone want to take a guess as to why they would steal this poor old dead man's teeth?
Souvenirs.
Were they gold? Well, teeth by themselves are valuable, but also gold caps, gold fillings. Gold is very motivating to an alcoholic because gold is drinking money. The gravediggers returned once the dust had settled. They found Stickney face down in the dirt. He was rolled over and they noticed that pieces of him were gone. A big chunk was taken out of his nose, most of his teeth were stolen, and several of his fingers had been ripped right off, probably while they were trying to get at his rings. They put Stickney's mangled body back inside his coffin. They closed the lid and prayed that his family would not notice any difference. They noticed. The gravediggers, didn't get away with it, unfortunately. Now, this cemetery is especially active during the witching hour around 2 and 3 a.m. People have seen a young child running around climbing trees. That's 5-year-old Cromwell entertaining himself. Eyewitnesses have also seen a whole crowd of shadows towards the back of the cemetery. They stand in a circle and they whisper conversation to each other. No matter how hard you listen or how long you stick around, you can't make out what's being said. It's like trying to listen to someone else's conversation while you are several rooms away in a separate house. It's just two separate worlds. And then there's Judge Stickney. He's been seen haunting this area with his eyes and head pointed towards the ground. His mouth is always open and he looks a little bit grisly. There's a gaping hole where his nose should be. He only has 2 teeth, 2 lonely teeth at the bottom of his bloody mouth. Now, while he was buried outside of St. Augustine, his spirit still persists. He still haunts this place because pieces of him are still in St. Augustine. He's forever wandering the cemetery, always searching for those missing teeth. Now, while he's searching for his own teeth, you should definitely keep your distance, as he'd be more than happy to return the favor, to grab and rip out any teeth that he happened to come across and add them to his lonely pair at the bottom of his mouth. This is the conclusion of the tour. I just want to say congratulations, brave survivors of the night.
So this is the little boy when he talked about Cromwell that passed here. Unfortunately, he is almost... Really, Cromwell? I'm trying to give you some love here. His unfortunately his parents were buried somewhere else, so he's all alone here, and he just apparently wanders restlessly, climbing trees and just trying to pass the time. If you like these videos, please click that subscribe button, tap the like, and ring that notification bell so you always know when a new video is headed your way. Thank you so much for watching, and now we're on to the next adventure. Bye, guys!
Today's video brought to you by Orlando for Families. For amazing prices and even better customer service on all of your stroller rental needs for your Orlando vacation, visit them at the website listed below, www.orlandoforfamilies.com. Use the promo code Ohana to save 15% off of their already competitive prices.